the first comment. Thanks, Time Control Gaming. I've been really appreciating your comments recently. I'm going to wait just a few more minutes, let some people join the stream. Really excited to do this. I've only done this a couple of times, but after the last time, people were like, hey, we love this, can you please do this again? And it's fun. It's very, very different from my regular video creating, which is going somewhere, filming lots of different clips, and then some period of time later editing that and uploading it. This is much more dynamic, and I really love like the interaction through comments and stuff. If you're just joining, I haven't really started yet, just talking about live streaming and how it's different from regular video editing, but I think I'll get like started in a minute or so. I'm in my apartment, by the way, in Chicago. My wife Lindsay is an amazing decorator. She's very creative, so this place looks awesome, in my humble opinion. There's a few train things up there. I have like an old postcard of the Chicago L. That's a painting of the Lisbon streetcar that a lady actually painted us in on our honeymoon. Some stuff from Japan, big train up there. And I have an old Amtrak sign and old maps and random things dispersed throughout the house. It's very nice living with somebody who actually tolerates your love of trains, and who doesn't mind being in the videos. Hey D'Angelo, it's good to see you on YouTube this time. Had fun seeing you at the CTA anniversary thing. Alright, so welcome to Live with Thom, the Trains Are Awesome live stream. It's October, which means it's my birthday month, and from comments that I've seen on my community posts, it seems like there are several of you with birthdays in October as well. So happy birthday to everyone who was born in the best month of the year. And I just thought it was a good opportunity. We haven't done a live stream since July. If you were there, you'll remember I was sitting outside by Lake Michigan with the Chicago skyline in the background. It's too cold for that and too dark. It's not super cold this week, thankfully. It's very rainy though here in Chicago. But might as well just do it from the comfort of my own home. We have about an hour together today, or basically just until Lindsay comes home. I haven't seen her all day, so when she comes home, it's quality time with her instead of you guys. Oh, happy birthday to your son, Marianne, 25. I'm a few years behind him. So, what I want to do today is just kind of talk about the channel. A lot has happened even since the last live stream, a lot of good stuff, so I want to talk about that a little bit, as well as what's coming in the next few weeks and months. We can just discuss train news. Hey, it's a great shirt. Sorry, somebody in the comments just said that they have this shirt. Oh, thanks, David. Okay, so we're talking about the channel. We're going to talk about just random train news that I've heard and read over the past few weeks, and if we have time, just a few thoughts that I had because of some videos that I uploaded. Just some thoughts about what it means to like trains and to be a transit advocate and stuff like that. Of course, we have a live chat. People are using that to, send birthday wishes and to talk about the cool shirt I'm wearing. But if you have any questions to ask me about the channel or about me or like a train that you want to ride, I might have ridden it, so I'd be more than happy to answer those. So let's talk about trains are awesome. Uh, my little pet project is almost 8 years old this year. It started in 2014, and in July I reached 5,000 subscribers as well as 1 million views, like in a span of 2 days. I think the 5,000 subs happened on a Friday, and then the million views happened on a Saturday, which is really crazy how that worked out. But since then, I've grown um, over 1,000 more subscribers. This is the fastest the channel has ever grown. It's really exciting to watch. It's very humbling that people would want to watch the travels that I make and listen to the stuff that I have to say. And I really appreciate everyone's support. Comments have been coming in. A lot of them have been really, really great in terms of like people sharing their experiences or just people highlighting things in the video that they liked. And those really encourage me to keep going, as does the feedback in this chat today. Thank you, everyone, for the birthday wishes. When I say that I run this channel, I mean I do most of the work, but I do have to give credit where credit is due. I have an amazing family surrounding me, and well, my brother does filming. Lindsay recently has been making a lot of really great videos. So I live in Chicago, and Chicago has these brand new cars on a rapid transit system called the 7000 series, and I ride the Blue Line every day, and I see them because there's a few sets running on the Blue Line now. She rides a different part of the Blue Line, and wouldn't you know it, she got some last week. So she sent me so many videos of these 7000 series cars, and I was just like so happy to get those, but also so incredibly jealous because I've been trying to ride those for a really long time. But more and more are coming, so I'll definitely get a chance. And it's just really fun to be married to somebody who grew to love trains and train travel. I see a comment coming in from Maryland Monroe. I think that's actually a really clever YouTube handle, by the way. So, and Maryland, you asked me a question last week about if I only travel coach or if I ever travel roumettes when I'm traveling on Amtrak. To date, I have traveled coach on all my Amtrak trips except for one, and that was when I traveled business class on the Downeaster. I used Amtrak's bid up program to get the business class tickets. I think it was $5 a person, $10. Anyway, it was really cheap. And the reason for that is primarily just money. I do monetize this YouTube channel, and I also have a full-time job, by the way, which is what pays most of the bills. But the little bit of extra cash that I get from YouTube is, well, first of all, it would take me several months to be able to afford like a roommate on Amtrak, and second, the phase I'm in my life right now, graduated college recently, you know, my first big person job, living in a city that's, you know, fairly expensive, totally worth it, but pretty expensive. Like, it makes more sense for me to travel on a budget and use the cash flow that I have to pay for groceries and rent and stuff like that. So roommates will come eventually, a sleeping car will come eventually, but for right now, you know, I have the body to be able to withstand 2 nights on Amtrak coach, so I don't really see the necessity to pay for the extra luxury at this point in my life. That being said, part 2 of my reasoning for traveling coach on Amtrak is that, sorry if I pause in between, it's because I'm reading comments. But part two of my reason for exclusively traveling coach thus far is because I feel like most travel YouTube channels tend to highlight like the more upper class products, like first class on European trains, uh, first class on airlines, sleeper cars on Amtrak, which is great. And I've definitely gained from watching other creators and seeing what that's like. But at the same time, I'm here to like also show what it's like to travel on those lower budget train trips. Like when I rode the Southwest Chief last year, Amtrak had a sale, and so for $50, I was able to travel from Chicago to Los Angeles. Um, $50, that's a steal for the amazing journey that was. The Southwest Chief has some of the most beautiful scenery in the world. And so, uh, as you put it, Maryland, in your most recent comment in the live chat, uh, yeah, I show kind of the more budget side of things, as well as really practically, I can't afford to do roomette videos at this point. So to continue talking about the channel a little bit, I have a really fun new series launching on Saturday. The series is called Thom in the Midwest. So obviously I live in Chicago right now. Previously I lived in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is very, very Midwestern. And recently for my job, I've had to go to several locations in the Midwest that I'd never been to before, or that I hadn't really taken the time to like look at more closely. And so for the next several weeks, I'm going to be uploading videos of places in the Midwest, so like Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, that I visited over the summer and the fall. We're gonna highlight like local architecture, local history. Yes, D'Angelo, you should definitely travel to Grand Rapids. It's a great city. And food is going to play a little bit of a bigger role. Like at some of the places I'm going to show you like cool food places that we tried. So on Saturday, we're starting with St. Joseph, Michigan. St. Joseph is kind of in the southwest corner of Michigan, right on the lake, and a much cuter town than I thought it would be. And there were a few surprises during my 8-hour stay in the city. So stay tuned for that. We've got Quincy, Illinois coming. We've got random places in Wisconsin that I'd never heard of before. So new series launching on Saturday. And then yeah, one more thing is that you might have noticed that generally my videos have gone back to being weekly rather than twice a week. Like I said, about 3 months ago I started a job, and between working full-time and also having kind of an annoyingly long commute, the time that I have to edit videos is really the time in my commute, and most weeks I'm only able to manage to get one video out a week, which, the only annoying thing about that is that I have so much content that I still want to share with you guys, so it's like frustrating for me, like, ugh, I just want to put this out there. But at the same time, the pace of once a week is also kind of refreshing, that I don't feel like I have to keep up with the pressure, if that makes sense. All right, before we move on to like talking about some train news, let's take a quick look at the chat and see if there's any questions I can answer. Remember, if you have any questions for me, to just put them in the chat and I'll be happy to answer them. So Travis asks if I'm worried about being able to travel by train because of the railroad strike. Well, do you remember a few weeks ago when that strike was announced? I was actually planning to travel from Chicago to Michigan that Friday that the strike would have happened. So Lindsay and I, we had two backup plans. We were either going to take the South Shore line, which I think wasn't going to be affected by the strike, or we were going to take Greyhound, which we ultimately did end up doing on the way back, which is going to be a video this fall. And then check the news. Seems like the government had managed to prevent the strike from happening, and that was great for us because then we could just take Amtrak to Grand Rapids for that weekend. And then was the new Venture cars that had just entered service that week too, which I was excited about, and obviously nobody else is because we all hate Ventures for some reason. Um, and I do know that there are fears of the strike happening anyways, that I believe one of the unions rejected part of the new plan or something. I'd have to read up on that, so please don't take me as your only source for that. But in that case, I'm not daily dependent on like mainline railroads. I mostly take the CTA for work and stuff, so it would be annoying, but at the same time I do think that like the scheduling things that railroad staff have to work with are unfair, and that something needs to be done about those. So strikes are very annoying, but I'm on the side of the railroad workers as long as what they're asking is reasonable, which I think it is. Right. Nooner asks thoughts on the new Metro cars. I'm assuming you mean the new Alstom cars. What I'm excited about those cars is that they are going to not just be plain stainless steel. They are, I believe, from the artist's impressions, they're going to be like red and blue. I'm actually uploading a video about color on American trains and why American trains are generally silver sometime in the near future, kind of using some of the recent CTA heritage trains as examples of, what color would look like on an American train. And I'm glad to see Metro stepping away from that and adding some color. As for the gallery cars, I know that people hate the gallery cars. There are valid reasons for not liking the gallery cars. Their design is kind of clunky and outdated, not super space efficient. So in terms of Metro growth, I think having the more classic bi-level layout will be good for them. I do like the gallery cars as kind of a matter of, history, culture. Like it's a very American thing, a very Metro thing, really. And so, if one day in the future there will be no more gallery cars, then that will be a sad day. Even if it would be better if they were all gone. D'Angelo says that the 7000 series were on the orange line. That's good. Might be easier to catch that way. Simmons asks if I recommend the Silver Line from Boston Logan to Union Station. Yes, I do. And here's why. If you travel from Boston, it's a free ride, which is just very nice. The reason they did that was to shorten dwell times, because even though the Silver Line kind of advertises itself as a BRT, a bus rapid transit, it really is not. Like, except, sorry about that, lost the connection. Data is really bad. I love where I live, but if I could improve one thing. We were talking about Silver Line in Boston. So yeah, the airport line is the one exception. That actually is a pretty good quality bus route. So if you're looking for a fast way to get to the South Station, I definitely recommend the Silver Line. That being said, I've never been on the Blue Line because it was under construction when I was there, which I was kind of upset about because I was looking forward to the Blue Line, considering it switches from third rail to overhead wire at the airport, and I wanted to see that. But I'm definitely going back to Boston someday. Next question. Do I prefer bringing my own food or picking it up in the cafe? I like to get at least one thing from the cafe. For a while, Amtrak had like the little White Castle sliders. So we used to get those because they weren't that expensive. Obviously, if you're taking a long distance trip, do bring your own food, if you're in coach, because the cafe is kind of expensive. It has a monopoly on food for coach passengers. So bring your own food. Like the Southwest Chief in like Albuquerque or the Lakeshore Limited in Albany actually stop at the station for long enough that you can go to a local food place. Or I'm thinking about my brother went to Taco Bell on the Empire Builder in Spokane, and I stuck around to see the trains like combine. He didn't bring any for me, but Adam asks me if I have any new Amtrak trips coming up. You know what? I don't. At least I haven't booked anything yet. That's not to say that I won't ride any Amtrak in the future. It's just that I haven't booked anything yet. I'm going to Los Angeles in January, so I've been thinking about maybe riding the Pacific Surfliner. I'm there for a wedding, so we'll see how much time I actually have. I do have some more Amtrak trip reports coming on this channel, starting with the Carl Sandburg in just a few weeks, and then later we're riding the City of New Orleans. Best Grand Rapids bus line. John, is that you from Chelsea? But Best Grand Rapids bus line, Route 6. Hey, it's good to see you. Well, not see you, but good to hear from you. John's an old friend of mine from college, and he's in the live stream today. He is also the creator of the new 3D intro that I've been using for my videos, so he's very talented. I'm very grateful for that. But the best bus route in Grand Rapids is Route 6 because it goes from Central Station, past where I used to live, through like the cute Gaslight Village, Easttown area, past my school, and then to the mall. I've always thought Route 6 should be like a light rail and be extended to the airport. That's a utopian, like, that'll never happen kind of thing. But yeah, 6 is the best. I like the Laker line. I like Route 100. Absolute worst, in my opinion, is the Silver Line. I just feel like that is such a classic example of BRT gone wrong. You know, it has low frequencies. None of the areas around it really benefited from it economically. And I mean, the platforms are a good place for people to grill. I've seen people barbecue on the stations there before. Right? I think that goes through most of the questions so far. So let's talk a little bit about train news, because D'Angelo says that, have I heard recently that the K line opened in LA? Yeah, so we've got some like line openings, some new train announcements from different places in the world. So these are just like places that either I lived or that like I read about that caught my attention. So this isn't like an exclusive list of train news. There's sites for that. I can recommend those if you want. But starting with some pretty big news in Japan, a brand new Shinkansen line opened. The Shinkansen is the bullet train. First one opened in 1964, and the most recent line opened in September of 2022. And it links, well, it was supposed to link the city of Nagasaki with Fukuoka, the biggest city on the island of Kyushu. But I think because one of the prefectures in the middle, you know, they weren't really profiting from it economically, so they kind of just blocked construction. What you have right now is a really short, isolated high-speed line that, like, you can get on a high-speed train from Nagasaki to a station called Takeo Onsen, and then you can change to like a conventional train and continue your journey to Fukuoka. And then if you wanted to head farther east towards Tokyo, you'd have to get on a different high-speed train again. So like it's a cross-platform transfer with time changes, but still like it just kind of feels silly that there's just this little isolated high-speed line. It does cut journey times by 30 minutes even with the transfer. And then also Japan is celebrating its 150th anniversary of like the railroads. And to celebrate that, there's a pitch black train on the Yamanote line. The Yamanote line is the famous loop around Tokyo city center. It normally operates green trains, And now they have like a train that's completely black, like except for the lights, you would not be able to see that at night. And it's sponsored by Netflix, so it also has like the Netflix and on the sides. Moving over to the Netherlands, NS has a new CEO. Wouter Koolmees used to be like in the cabinet in the government, and the Minister of Social Affairs, and now he's CEO of NS, and we'll see how he does because NS is kind of in hot water. NS is the Dutch National Railway Company. They, the European Union isn't allowing countries to just give companies the rights to run trains without tendering it competitively, and the Dutch government did that with NS. It's kind of in like a legal gray area, so it's being reviewed and it's being appealed by other parties. Do I think Amtrak should nationalize? Amtrak is nationalized. Amtrak is completely run by the United States Congress. So, yeah, so NS has that, and then also they have severe staffing shortages. So, starting in December, they are going to cut in the timetable horrifyingly, from what I've read. Like, areas where the frequencies are just going to be cut in half, which is still better than any metro line. Let's be real, but dude, I took the train in the Netherlands every day for 5 years. Like, I would not want to wait longer than I already did, just because we're spoiled there. But in some good NS news, they are ordering intercity trains that are going to be half bi-level and half single level, built by CAF or CAF. I always feel weird saying CAF or like hearing people say CAF, but the Spanish company is building these like hybrid single bi-level trains. Then they also wrote out a tender for new regional trains, so that'll be exciting to follow. Yeah, I think, what else was there? Oh, I read that Portugal is going to build a high-speed line between Porto and then going south to Lisbon, which will be exciting. I took the current high-speed train, the Alfa Pendular, from Lisbon to Porto back in August, and that was a fun trip. So it'll be interesting to see if the high-speed line actually starts running. Yeah, so freight railroads could be nationalized. I actually haven't watched that video yet, but I don't know. I'm kind of, not to get like political or anything, but like I can see the advantages of nationalization as well as private companies in terms of how completely disinvested American freight railroads are in any sort of like network and infrastructure. I could see why a little bit more government pressure would be to the benefit of the American economy. So let's move on to the United States. Dennis just asked about the Amtrak Midwest cars. The coach class rollout is going as normal. They're appearing on more routes. The Facebook groups are full of angry people that wish we still exclusively ran trains from the 1970s. And then there's me, who's like, actually, I kind of like these trains. And at this point, I'm strong enough to face the backlash on YouTube and on Facebook for daring to actually appreciate the venture cars. But I've seen the business and cafe cars in the yard in Chicago a lot, but I don't think that they've been put into service yet. California has just started running its first venture set, or they're about to, and they've moved on, and like venture service should be happening either now or sometime soon. And on the subject of California, the Californian government is buying Stadler Flirt trains. So they're very popular in Europe, they're increasingly popular in North America, and not only is California buying flirts that are going to be used by Amtrak, they are hydrogen-powered flirts. So They're called ZEMU, Zero Emission Multiple Units. And what shocks me more than that they're hydrogen powers is that we're going to see Amtrak running flirts. Like, never in a million years did I think that was going to happen. I think the initial order is 4, but they could expand up to 29 if they like them. So, yeah, multiple units for Amtrak California. And then on the subject of Amtrak, new Amtrak trains, the new intercity train sets that Siemens is building, we found out some new details about those today. So basically what these are going to be diesel locomotives with like a set of cars behind it, with the front car being kind of interesting. So there is going to be a locomotive with 6 cars, or the B1 series, and the B2 series is going to be a locomotive with 8 cars, and the car closest to the locomotive is going to have a pantograph, so that like on the Northeast Corridor and on the Keystone Corridor, they can run as electric trains, and then they can continue into like Virginia, the Carolinas, or like Vermont as diesel trains. The Downeaster is also going to be running these trains, even though there's no overhead electrification anywhere. Then the C variant are going to be the same thing, like a 6-car train plus a locomotive, except the front car, instead of having a pantograph, is going to have a battery pack so that they can run into Penn Station. And then finally there's the D variant, which is going to be a 6-car set with just a diesel locomotive for the Cascades in Washington and Oregon. And I think these might run with like the old Chargers that are running there now. So it's an interesting solution, not one I've actually ever heard of before, to have diesel and electric in one train. Certainly seems a little bit smarter than Metro with the battery F40s. When I first made that video, I was kind of optimistic about the battery trains. The more I think of it, the more I just think it's like really stupid to have this really, really old train and put a battery in it on lines that you literally own. Like if there's one agency that could electrify their tracks, it'd be Metro. So hopefully these battery trains lead to the conclusion that we should electrify some of the Metro lines. Yeah, if you want to find more about the Metro battery project, I have a video about that. Let's see if there's been any more comments. Yes, definitely ride the Route 6 if you're in Grand Rapids. Worst bus route in Grand Rapids, by the way, is the 27. That was a pretty consistent route between the mall and the airport, and they just downsized that so much so that it serves the airport like 5 times a day now. And then they have this like transit on demand thing that I tried once that I have a video about, but it's so connect your airport with consistent public transit. Grand Rapids, solid F for me. This question asks me, Dylan asks, what has been your favorite train you've rode on so far? Okay, so I did some math a few years ago, and been on over 10,000 trains in my life, like individual rides. So a favorite is really hard to pick an ultimate winner. I've done some trains in Switzerland, like the Belle Epoque between Montreux and Zweisimmen. That one's gorgeous. I've got train lines that are like important to me personally, like the Seibu line in Tokyo. Favorite train? Amtrak Southwest Chief was just absolutely breathtaking. Yeah, I also really liked the Northeast Regional. I only rode it from Philly to Baltimore, but it was so different from any other American train I'd been on. Like, it was like a fast, long-distance train with commuters on it instead of like a slow train with tourists. So that was a very interesting experience. Um, yeah, so when it comes to my favorite train, I really wish I had like a better, clearer answer for you. I've got some crazy train stories that like I wouldn't recommend, like riding the CTA Blue Line after midnight, or one time I took a train from Budapest to Zagreb, Croatia, and I was 18. My friend was also 18, and we just, we did our best. We got on the train that said the station said it was going to go to Croatia, and obviously we didn't check. In the Netherlands, train the screens say where the train is going to go. In Eastern Europe, sometimes you have to look at the papers or the signs on the doors of the train, and we didn't do that. So we were stuck in a car that wasn't going to cross the border, and ultimately, after a lot of like using our hands and feet to communicate to the Hungarian conductors, we found a pair of British tourists that informed us that our car wasn't going to cross the border. So we scooted into one of only two cars that was going to go into Croatia, which was packed with like, I'm not joking, almost 200 Spanish high school students that were on like a trip together. So it was sardines in a can. I didn't have much of a problem with it because living in Japan, but my friend I could tell was like kind of getting panicky. There was a couple just sitting in the bathroom because that's the only place that was spaced. And we get to the border. At least 10 of these high schoolers don't have their passport, but we're leaving the Schengen zone, so that was a problem. We got into Croatia. There was track construction that they only told us about in Croatian. And then ultimately we had to get on a bus, and the bus took us into Zagreb. So a cool story to share now, fun video to film at the time, but also like, man, if there's ever a reason to learn as many languages as you can, it's traveling by train from Budapest to Zagreb. So yeah, that's one of my bad train experiences. As seems to be every commute I have to work, it's always something that's not running. Gutter says he enjoys my videos with Bear. Any chance I'll see another collab with him? I mean, Bear and I are still related. We're still brothers, have been for 20 years now, so... and he's actually just been on a trip to Europe. So for the first time in a long time, I'm going to have some footage from the other side of the pond to share with you guys. He's been on some really, really cool trains. Like I said at the beginning of the live stream, Lindsay took a brand new CTA train here that I'm jealous of. I'm even more jealous of the stuff my brother's been able to do in Europe recently. So I'm excited to share that. It's kind of funny how my channel slipped into becoming an American channel when if you had looked at it like 5 years ago, I was making a lot of Dutch content because that's where I lived then. And my goal has always been to like make it be like a real like taste of the world, like trains from different places kind of mixed together, and I haven't been able to do that much recently just because of the footage that I've collected. So I'm excited to share some places outside of the United States. GD Jason is considering a trip on the Empire Builder, but it would be in February. Not sure if that's a good time of year for that trip. I took it March 1st, and I loved it. So you don't have to worry that much about that. In fact, going in the winter means that Glacier National Park will be extra snowy and really beautiful. Portland, in my experience, wasn't that cold. I don't know if you're planning on going to Portland or Seattle, but Portland was pretty decent temperature-wise at least, and then some of the stops along the way, like we stopped in Minot, North Dakota, and froze our butts off when we stepped outside, but you don't have to step outside. Portland, yeah, the Portland section is very scenic, so I recommend that. I haven't been to Seattle, but I feel like the Portland section of the Empire Builder is underrated. Dylan took the Eurostar. I went on the Eurostar, I think, 10 years ago. What surprised me about that was how short you're actually in the Channel Tunnel. And 2021, you took the Northeast Regional from Philly to Boston. Yeah, I took it from Philly too, but I went to Baltimore. Do I wish Brightline was on every commuter route in the U.S.? I wish that Brightline would. I wish that Brightline would expand for sure. I think they actually made some progress on Brightline West, but I think that some of the strengths of commuter routes in the U.S. are that they are publicly funded, meaning that they can't just be randomly dropped, or I guess they can, but like Brightline on every commuter route, no. In terms of like the corporate structure, Brightline quality on every route, yes, that would be great. Especially some of the commuter rails on the East Coast, love them, but man, was my butt sore after riding on SEPTA or New Jersey Transit. Gutter says he lives along the Northeast Corridor, so he's looking forward to the new Acela trains. I hope to catch the old Acela trains sometime before they're out of service. That keeps being pushed farther and farther back, so I feel like I have a little bit of time. But I kind of want to do a comparison video once the new ones come out. D'Angelo says that he discovered Route 60. I have a video about that, so if you scroll back on my channel a little bit, it's Grand Rapids' the shortest bus route, and it's completely free, and I used to live right over there, so I took that one just for fun sometimes. Okay, so a few weeks ago I uploaded a video of the MBTA Green Line. The Green Line is basically a collection of 4 light rail lines in Boston that kind of converge in this shared tunnel underneath Boston, and part of that tunnel is the oldest subway in America. If you are like a train enthusiast like me, and you like weird train stuff, you like fun train stuff, I highly recommend it. You can see old cars, there's like weird station layouts, the trains run like really close to each other. It's just like so different from most subway lines. And when I created my Green Line video, that's the message I wanted to convey. And because of the way it operated and because of the way it looked, I kind of considered it to be my favorite subway in Boston. I also really like the Ashland-Mattapan high-speed line, but who doesn't? What happened with that is when I made the community post about it, I got like an insane amount of backlash. Like more than when I say I like the new Midwest Amtrak cars, more than some of the other content I've made. And so one thing I did was just wait a little bit with uploading that video until I could like kind of process those comments. Some of them were kind of nasty, and I know you're supposed to ignore comments on social media. That's really difficult for me to ignore people's comments in general, so I had to process that and also formulate a response. And originally I was considering doing that in my new and improved Green Line video, and that would have just taken too long. Totally distracted from the positive message of it. So kind of these thoughts that are formulating in my head, I thought I'd share them while we're together in this live stream anyways. So when I look at like the transit fan community, and I don't mean like a specific Discord server or like anything that's actually etched in a boundary, but just like people who like trains and who like transit in general, I feel like there's 2 extremes that people could be drawn to. One of the extremes is the like, this is good, how dare you criticize it movement. So what I mean by that is, well, like a good example, I'm from the Netherlands, and so Dutch rail fans are very proud of the Dutch railroad network. and for good reason. It's consistently ranked one of the best in Europe, one of the best in the world. High frequencies all around. You can get to a lot of places. Yeah, it's a good system. It really is a good system. I like to complain about it a lot, though. And I think some of my complaints are justified. I know that makes me sound like a Karen, but hear me out. Every system has flaws. Like, I don't think there's a perfect system. I think Tokyo has the best train system in the entire world, like bar none. But I can point out one or two things that I would improve about it, and that's what humans do. Is we make progress, we improve things, and so the Dutch train system has some issues, like uh, like the fact that if a train is canceled, there used to be like a statistics system where it would no longer count towards the delayed train statistics. So oftentimes trains would just simply not run. Or if snow was forecasted, they wouldn't run anything. But if snow unexpectedly fell, the trains would run fine. Not to mention dumb policies like closing doors before a minute before departure time, or having really complicated routes that just aren't necessary. The thing is I sometimes had criticisms of Dutch trains, and first class is another one. In a Dutch regional train, you are actually just paying for a different colored seat, and people are going to argue about that, but it's just true. So, anyways, long story short, people like this system. It's a good system. You criticize the system, and people get incredibly defensive, and they're like, don't you realize how good we have it? Don't you realize this, that? And my response to that is, yes, I realize this, and that's why I want to make it better. And so that's example A of people like us who can get so protective of something that we're not willing to listen to people that offer critiques or improvements. Now, that's obviously very common with people that live with good public transit system. We take a look at North America. I tend to see the opposite, where people are so incredibly cynical about their transit that is no longer okay to celebrate things. And that's what I experienced with the Boston Green Line. Is the Green Line has a lot of structural issues. Speeds are insanely low. The MBTA as a whole is just so underfunded that the quality of the tracks is really bad. And so when I made that post saying, hey, I like the Green Line, people immediately were like, how dare you? Or like, somebody called me an idiot. They were like, you're an idiot if you like the Green Line. Like, people were like, don't you realize that it's bad and blah, 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 blah. And like, there are a lot of YouTube channels out there that focus on like the politics and the economics of public transit, and I love watching that stuff. Like that's what I watch when like on my commute when I'm not editing and stuff. And I dabble in that sometimes. I'm also not an expert in that. So for the most part, this channel is just enjoying trains. Like, I like going to a city and getting on the subway at the most random place and riding it for 3 stops. I did that in Philly when I was there in December. Like, got on the Broad Street subway in a random place, just rode it for a few stops. And doing that is how I appreciated the Green Line, because like, I'm a tourist. I'm not a commuter. I'm sure if I was a commuter in Boston, I'd hate the Green Line. I mean, I have some choice words for the CTA Blue Line. Like, why is it that I'm always waiting 20 minutes for my Blue Line train in the morning, and the next one is going to leave 4 minutes after mine? Like, can somebody explain that to me? But as a tourist and as a train-loving person, when I came to Boston, I could see these things about the Green Line that I really liked. And I think that we need to create space for that. I think that if we care about trains and we care about public transit, which I honestly think is the most sustainable, equitable, fair, and future proof way of traveling, then we need to give each other space, we need to give each other grace, and not we need to be emboldened to call out the bad and be excited about the good. And that's what I hope to do with this channel is I hope to highlight things about train travel that just make me happy, that make me excited. I am so lucky to have someone in my life that can share that with me. And I'm so lucky to live in a time where I have this platform where I can share that with all of you. And so that's basically what I wanted to say is there's plenty of reasons in life to be cynical, and let's not let trains be another reason for that. Let's call out train management and train inadequacies where we need to, and let's support each other in this hobby slash passion slash advocacy. All right, the sermon is open. The sermon is over. Please open your hymnals to it. Let's see what's going on in the chat, and then I think Lindsay is home soon. So, as someone who as someone who actually lives in Boston and takes the T regularly, I knew much worse than the Green Line. Amen to that. I mentioned earlier I'm going to Los Angeles in January, and I don't think that they have a fantastic train system, especially considering just how incredibly enormous the city is. Also, lots of American cities that were like, you know what, we'll do light rail and call it good. Boston, MBTA sucks. I know that. But at least you have the MBTA. Another video that got similar backlash was when I went to Denver and rode the airport line, which is a really great connection in my opinion. It's all electric trains. They run every 15 minutes from the airport to Union Station, which is walking distance from downtown. And somebody once again was like, so I said I enjoyed it, and he was like, how could you? Don't you know how bad RTD is? And I was like, listen, there's this great product that I just took, and why are you, a stranger, telling me that I can't celebrate this great experience that I just had? But that ended up being a very fruitful conversation where we were able to discuss issues that the agency was facing, as well as things that we appreciated about it. And what people oftentimes tell me is like, hey, don't you realize Europe does it like this, or don't you realize that Japan does it like that? And I'm like, yes, I realize. I'm from Europe and I lived in Japan, so trust me when I ride the CTA, I'm not standing there thinking, wow, this is great, this is really the best humanity can do. Robert says, I live in Detroit, I'd be thrilled if you had the Green Line. What, you mean the people mover isn't good enough for a city of several million people? So people tell me, don't you realize these other countries do it better? I'm like, yes, but also don't you realize that if we can highlight something that's being done well in the United States, then other Americans are going to look at that and be like, hey, they can do that, we can do that, I'm very much for learning from other countries, and that's what I hope to do professionally. I studied international relations, but we can also learn from our neighbors closest to us. And so if Colorado or if Boston is doing something right, then you bet I'm going to zoom in on that. Okay. Brian says, found the channel the other day, keep up the great content. Thank you. GD Jason says, I always liked riding on Dutch trains. The Netherlands does have very unique trains, and I miss them. Like, I don't miss like being late to school per se, at least once a week, but like I miss being able to go wherever I wanted and like just having a well-developed railroad network. Adam asks me, do I have a favorite commuter route? The Metro Electric line is cool, as is the South Shore line, just because of their like weird, shouldn't say weird, but for American standards, weird electric nature. And the MBTA Fairmount line, I think it's called. Is it? I should know this. I wrote it. But the one that's like within the lower fare zones. I like that one. I think that one has a lot of potential. SEPTA system as a whole is just really cool because it's all electrified and it has the Center City connection, which just like links to historic railroads. And I mentioned I like RTD. I like the look of the rail runners in New Mexico. I haven't been on those, but I would love to. And then I enjoyed riding the Metra Heritage Corridor. I think as a railroad line, it sucks. Like, it runs 3 times a day. But the ride itself was really fun. Cool, so those are some commuter lines that I really like. I also love the design of the coaster. Very much on my bucket list to ride that one. Have I heard of Brightline West? Yes, I covered that a few minutes ago. Brightline West is this project between Southern California and Las Vegas. Mattapan high-speed line more frustrating than the green line. I'd love to hear why that is. Brian says he likes my perspective on things. Appreciate that. Yeah, the Heritage Corridor is just a completely bad line. So it's Southwest Service and North Central Service. And what confuses me about those is it's really not a capacity thing. At least Southwest Service isn't. Been on Southwest Service and planning to upload that video pretty soon because they have this cool thing called a request discharge, or like a flag discharge, which basically means if you ask the conductor, they'll run the train an extra 2 stops for you, and I did that. Had to get a lift home, but it was worth it. Yeah, those are, I think I've caught up on the, oh no, is there an Amtrak train that goes from Chicago, Illinois to Hayesville, North Carolina? I don't know where Hayesville, North Carolina is. Is there like there's nothing direct from Chicago to North Carolina, so you're gonna have to transfer in Washington, D.C. Anyways. But Amtrak.com is a great website. What I really like about Amtrak.com is, unlike airlines, they actually just show you the price that you'll pay for all people in your party. So like, let's say Lindsay and I are going to Grand Rapids and the ticket is $35 each. It'll show up as $70. And I, as a European who's used to like tax and everything being included in the price, like it's a little bit of sweet relief that Amtrak provides me. Yeah, so it's like Flagstop, except on the Metro Southwest service, there's 1 train a day where technically it has 1 final destination, but if you tell the conductor that you want to go beyond that, then they will run the train to the end of the line rather than that intermediate destination. Oh yeah, I get that. So Gutter says he likes the green line better than the Ashland-Mattapan high-speed line because it runs more regularly and has a designated right-of-way. Lindsay should be home soon, so probably not going to spend too much more time on this live stream. We've been going for an hour, which is great. There's people here that have actually listened to me talk for an hour, which mad respect for you. Yeah. So, in terms of me, it's my birthday month in October. I'm excited about that. Hopefully, gonna do some fun stuff with my family, and life's good in Chicago. Chicago has lots of cool stuff to do. This past weekend was the Chicago Marathon. I actually had a friend running in it who Chicago is nice and flat, so he beat his personal record, and that was cool. We saw him run close to where we live, and this summer there was the air show, which was super exciting, and one question I had from a previous post that I didn't get to yet was Cameron asked me what my least favorite Amtrak route was, and I spent a lot of time thinking about that. And I generally enjoy riding Amtrak, so ultimately decided that it was the Lakeshore Limited. The staff I had on my trip on the Lakeshore Limited was just rude. Like there's no other way to put it. They were absolutely rude, and the toilets were clogged before we'd even reached Albany, and it was still great because it was Amtrak, but really they don't run superliners on that route anyways. The scenery is beautiful, but it's not out west level beautiful or like Cardinal level beautiful. So I like the trip, but put it next to all the other trips I've been on, I liked it less. So I see that in the chat people are talking about the MBTA Type 10s, and everyone that's talked to me or that I've seen on YouTube has said they think that they're super ugly. And I looked at the artist's impression and I thought it looked really nice. I think that the Ventures in the Midwest are nice trains and everybody seems to hate them. So am I just a very weird person? Like is my taste just the opposite of everybody else? No matter what the answer to that is, I'm not going to change. So, but no, I think that the MBTA Type 10s look all right. They definitely look better than the Type 8s. Brian says that with Amtrak it tends to be a hit or a miss. So do you know which Amtrak route has the absolute best staff in the entire country? Is the Pier Marquette. It's a crew of just like a few guys. They spend the night in Grand Rapids, they go to Chicago and then back up, and they're just always so nice. On my video on Saturday, you'll see me try out a special food place along the route of the Pier Marquette, and when Lindsay and I were eating that food on the train, the conductor came over and we had a conversation about how good it was and how they like to get that a lot en route. And earlier this summer, we rode the Pier Marquette from Chicago to Grand Rapids, and there was a very intoxicated person who literally sitting right behind me, causing a scene and being incredibly insulting and offensive to the conductors. The conductors handled themselves in such a professional, mature, de-escalating way. They ultimately put the guy off the train at Hammond Whiting, but I just have nothing but respect for the staff of the Pier Marquette, as well as most Amtrak trains. The only bad experience I've had on Amtrak was with staff was on the Lakeshore Limited. Now, as I add more and more trains to my collection, I'm sure that there will be other unpleasant instances as well. And what I just have to do is remind myself that we're all human. I definitely have days where I want to snap at people and cannot imagine what it must be like to be in a tube with grumpy people for your job. So no excuses, but you know, it's not worth being nasty back. Cool. It's getting late, especially if you're on the East Coast, but does anybody have anything else that they'd like me to discuss before we call it a night? Any other October birthdays out there? Also, my throat is feeling fine, so that's good. Dylan's birthday is in October too. Welcome to the club. I have a lot of videos right now where I have like 90% of the footage and I'm like waiting to shoot the last stuff, and I really should just like go and do that. But Gutter asks, do I think the Acela type train can be successful somewhere in the US other than the East Coast? Well, there is this slight issue of electrification, but of course you know that. There's a YouTuber called City Nerd that did like a whole data analysis of city pairs in the US that would actually be able to sustain high-speed rail. So his channel is interesting. Definitely, he's a scientist. He comes with evidence, and that's really interesting to follow. But yeah, I think there are city pairs that could use high-speed rail. I mean, if you look at countries the scale of the U.S. that do have high-speed rail, we like to think that the United States is super spread out, and it is. Don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, just the Chicago suburbs alone are so massive and so wide that you're never going to get everybody to ride the train. But at the same time, the majority of Americans do live in cities. So if high-speed rail was more accepted and more prevalent, then I do think that it would attract a decent group of riders. I think in general there are just cities not served by trains that surprises me. Like, I've always wondered why there's no talk whatsoever about a train between Grand Rapids, Lansing, and Detroit. Like there's rumors sometimes and speculation, but I don't think for the foreseeable future there will ever be anything. Right now, everybody in Michigan seems to be focused on the Ann Arbor to Traverse City train. It's like, trains don't have to be destined to fail here. Ben, is that you? Like CAJ Ben? Because if so, that is really cool that you're here. I really appreciate that. Oh, that's so cool. How are you? I haven't seen you since 2018, I think. Do you live like remotely close to me or not at all? because if you do, I will definitely text you on Instagram. Thanks for showing up. That really, really means a lot to me. It's cool, actually. This past weekend, I got to connect with some people from different places I've lived in the past, and that was just so good to like catch up, share a meal together, and just like have just spend time talking and being in each other's presence. I really appreciate that. We're kind of moving out of the phase of the pandemic where social interactions are. Ooh, you're visiting Chicago soon. Text me. I have an air mattress. I have a place to stay. Alright, and on that note, I think I'm out of stuff to say. I have a few more voiceovers to do for my video on St. Joseph, Michigan coming on Saturday. So, yeah, starting this new series, Thom in the Midwest, random places in the Midwestern United States that I will be visiting. Always doing something train related. There are cities that have no running trains at the moment, but if they're not running currently, we'll talk about the history. Otherwise, we'll do something with the trains there, but also with the local shops, culture, food, history. I'm really excited about this series, and we're starting on Saturday with St. Joseph, Michigan. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you enjoyed this chat and you'd love to see some of my content. Check out some of my older content for trains I've talked about today. Everybody have a good night, a good rest of your week. Happy birthday to all my fellow October birthday people. And thank you, everyone. Bye.